stories don't define you. How you tell them will. Hi, I'm Sarah Elkins, your host and chief story maker of Elkins Consulting. We share stories for many reasons, to persuade, to entertain, to connect. What we sometimes forget is the impact of the stories we tell ourselves. Whether you're sharing personal stories or business stories, how you share them makes a difference in how you remember them and in how you're perceived by the people you're interacting with. When you figure out which stories to share, difficult bosses and coworkers, successes, failures, the next step is to develop how you share them. Have you figured out your patterns, your roles in those successes, the discomfort and your challenges? In this series, you'll hear stories that will resonate with you. You'll nod your head in understanding, and then we'll dig into the lessons from each of those. How many times have you been sharing a story only to be interrupted by a person eager to share his own? When I'm working with clients on communication skills, I remind them to listen for understanding, not to respond. But during this podcast, I'm asking you to listen and consider your own related stories, to listen and consider which stories in your life might have impacted you in a similar way. Today on Your Stories Don't Define You, How You Tell Them Will, I'm welcoming my guest, Jennifer McGinley. And we met a couple of years ago on LinkedIn, and then she attended the No Longer Virtual conference in Denver, and we connected on a much deeper level, as connecting face-to-face and in person often will do. And I'm so excited to have you join me today. Thanks for joining me, Jennifer.
Oh, I'm absolutely thrilled, Sarah. This is a great opportunity, and I really appreciate it.
So I invited you today because you just celebrated your second anniversary with your PR agency that you started 2 years ago. And I'm so excited to hear a little bit about what got you to this point, your pivotal moments, and a little bit about what you do. But let's start the way that I always start, which is by asking you to share something about yourself that most people don't know about you, something we wouldn't see on your LinkedIn profile or a resume or a bio. Do you have something to share?
I do, and it's the fact that my dream gig was to be an anchor woman on the Today Show. And that didn't happen, but it was definitely a dream for many, many years, beginning in college and throughout college. So yeah, that would be it. I always wanted to be a broadcast journalist.
Oh, and particularly on the Today Show.
It was at that time, yeah. Yep.
Why
exactly.
is that? What do you think drew you to that particular show?
I think I grew up with watching that morning show literally every morning. My mom would have it on every day. And I definitely think my kind of addiction with news and broadcast news, came from that experience and that exposure every morning growing up.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yes.
You know, it's interesting you say that because a memory just popped into my head. When I was, 20, I guess, I dropped out of college for a year and I worked at my dad's print shop in Denver, and we lived in Colorado Springs, and we would get up super early in the morning and drive an hour from Colorado Springs to Denver to go to work. And then we'd drive back together, and we had all this time together. And me as a young adult, that's time that you usually don't have with your parents. But we listened to NPR every day. Oh. And it just occurred to me that part of my love for storytelling may have come from listening to those shows every morning on NPR. This American Life would come on our way home. And I just got really fascinated by the regular stories of regular people. And I wonder if that has anything to do with where I am now. I'm going to have to dig a little deeper into that.
I know. I love when those memories just come out and surface in odd ways. Absolutely. I'm sure it is. And now I love NPR almost more than anything else now. I listen to that every morning when I drive my son to school. And usually anytime I turn on the news, that's the consistent one for me as well.
Huh. That's so funny. So this is actually just all kind of relates to exactly why I wanted to interview you today for this podcast, is that we talk a lot about the pivot points in our lives, those moments in your life when everything shifts and the way you see yourself in this world shifts and your perspective completely changes, transforms really. And though we don't usually know when this is happening, when at the time that it's happening, we don't know that this is a transformational moment. But later on, we can look back and say, oh my gosh, that conversation, later on, we can say it completely changed my trajectory in my life. So as you talk about watching the Today Show and going through all the way into college and after college of still kind of having that ultimate goal, do you remember a moment when you realized that it really was something that you were going to be able to get into that business, even if it wasn't exactly how you had imagined it?
It is a little bit blurry, but I did an article for my school paper in college, and Deborah Norville was on at the time, and I really wanted to interview her. It didn't work out, but it was, and I think she was only on for a little bit, and I think Katie Couric took over for her. Yeah, I know it was definitely in the fall of probably my freshman year in college, sophomore year in college. And I did end up working with an anchor woman my senior year semester at KYW in Philadelphia for Pat Shiraki, she's retired since, but she is a phenomenal broadcast journalist, and she really was such a mentor to me and actually helped me while I drafted my graduation speech for college, and just really groomed me to be a little bit more poised and professional, the way I presented myself. And I'll always, cherish the time that I had with her to learn from somebody that's such a professional, really absolute dream to work with and be her intern.
Do you remember a particular conversation with her that had a big impact on you, that you could look back now and say, oh my gosh, when she said this, it changed everything?
One of the funny things is I remember when I was, it was a week or two before my graduation speech, and I was lucky. There were several people that, auditioned or tried out to do their speech, and mine was chosen. But she said, Jennifer, always wear comfortable shoes, like comfortable heels. She said, because that is the way you kind of ground yourself for that speaking engagement. And she was right. You need to feel good. It's not just about looking good. It's feeling good, I think, within your core as well. So that was, and I got a great pair of heels and a great dress, and I felt great. And the speech went off without a hitch. And, it was one of those really special moments, my, senior year graduation speech in this gorgeous May day. It was that, those little tips that she along the way during that internship that she would give me that. And she actually helped me find my first job too, because of a connection.
Wow.
When she was doing a news story, and she said, Jen, I think you're going to love this. And I was there, I think 2 or 3 years. And it was the perfect job for me right out of college. And it's amazing. And we, definitely kept in touch till a couple of years ago when she left her job.
Wow. Isn't it amazing how one person can have such a big impact on you?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I agree.
It's funny that you remember the shoes, because that is something that you and I have talked about, and I've posted about that you always, when you're planning your outfit for an event that you are nervous about or that's going to step out of your comfort zone, that you start with your shoes, because you have to have that foundation. We've talked about that. And that's so funny that she said that to you even then.
Yes, it is kind of symbolic for being grounded, when you're on stage too. And I know you love red shoes. You do, you really, it is all about when you're standing in front of people, you just want to feel grounded and secure in that setting, as well as, within your core. You just want to feel really good about yourself and that confidence level. Yeah.
Well, and it really is the foundation for the body language that you're going to express. Because if you can't walk in them, if you're wearing heels that are too high or uncomfortable, and you're trying to walk and you are not walking well in them, think about how that's presenting to the people that are watching you.
Yep. Very awkward.
Yes. You're laughing so hard, and I'm chuckling because I'm imagining some of the experiences where I've watched women do that, where they walk awkwardly, and you kind of want to tell them, choose your shoes more wisely.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's so funny. So here we are 2 years into your company, and I have since left my job and gone exclusively self-employed as well. And I know that there have been a few moments where I have, been very discouraged or um, started really questioning what I was doing and whether I was going to be successful. And I had some pivotal moments that kind of pushed me forward, catalysts that helped me get through those times. Can you think of a time like that in the last 2 years that you either somebody did something or you had a realization or an event or something that really changed how you were feeling at that moment?
Absolutely. I would say one that comes to mind very quickly is September 2018. A woman on LinkedIn reached out to me, and I didn't even know her. She was not a connection, but she said, I'm hosting a women's luncheon and I really want you to be there. And I had another meeting scheduled with a good colleague of mine. And I asked him, I said, this is a really good opportunity for me. And he said, absolutely go for it, And what happened that day was I saw the speaker and immediately connected with her backstory, about how she got her business started. And then now she, does business coaching, and how, she went to Johns Hopkins, and she had all those qualities of people when I want to work with clients that I like. But for me, it was different. It was, her children having some learning issues, and how she has to rise above it and become an entrepreneur and a professional and be successful. And it was then that I realized that I needed to work with her and her helping me. And she is still my business coach today. She is Nettie Owens of Sapari Consulting. And she's so much younger than me, but she is this brilliant woman that is the real deal. And she has literally changed the direction of my business. She sees something in me that I truly don't see in myself in terms of the potential I have as an entrepreneur. But those moments are so wonderful, because being an entrepreneur is the most challenging, difficult thing, except parenting, that I've ever done before. There are days that I'm like, oh my God, I should just start interviewing for a regular job. And I'll tell Nettie that. She's like, I know, hang in there. And I think those difficult moments where you feel leveled, usually you have to go through that crap in order to come out on the other end. And it is hard and it is challenging, but it is worthwhile. So, that was one of them. Another one is this July. Actually, it was last Thanksgiving. I went through some things with my personal family that I just learned so much about myself. And I've definitely been on this soul searching journey for my own, to learn more about why I am the way I am, and why I react to things, and why I have certain perspectives and opinions and feelings about things. And it's been so amazing and so much hard work. But, I have boundaries now, which I never really had them before. I've always been a people pleaser. Reading the book Dare to Lead by Brené Brown has been pivotal for me. And just everything about leadership, everything about why, like I said, we act the way or feel the way or think the way we do. And it's really about why we're all wired a certain way too. When you're at a regular job, you just don't have these types of moments. I think you go into your job and you go home, and you don't have to self-reflect and, try to be a better person every day in the same level that as an entrepreneur, it's so much of a head game. I think like an athlete, I think like a marathon runner, I think you have to really look within yourself so much, because you're driving the business. I'm a solopreneur. Everything is based on me and my work that day. I'm in charge of everything right now, except the business side, which I am, I call Nettie my COO. I joked with her. I said, that's what I need. I need the accountability. I need those consultative moments where I just need that direction. and just that brainstorming. So sorry
Totally
for the
understand that.
long-winded answer there, but
No. What I'd like to do is dig a little into that luncheon that you attended. Where was that?
It was in the Baltimore County area. It was part of, I think it was Elevate Women. Is part of a national women's leadership organization, but this was going to be this new kind of Baltimore County chapter. And it was a woman that was going to start it up. And it was just such a great opportunity. And someone reached out because they saw me on LinkedIn, and she said, no, I love what you say, how you connect with others. And, everybody's watching you in this digital world as well as in your real life too. And that's something I pride myself about, that I am very consistent in every way I possibly can be. And the women, they were all women, female entrepreneurs at that meeting. And
so it just goes to show you never know who's reading your work and who is going to be impacted by it. It's kind of magical when that one person, because like I said, in so many different times, it's not the number of contacts that you have. It's the one that matters that reaches out to you. So I'm curious, did you ever get to talk to her to ask her specifically why she wanted you at that luncheon?
I think they did not have anybody that was in the public relations field, and she thought that would be very helpful for me to lend my expertise. And actually I did, she asked me to do the talk at the next one. She said, I want you to be our speaker, which was the first time I did a speaking engagement as an entrepreneur. So that was great. And also, the purpose of that meeting was for everybody to help each other and to get business and to start that clear communication, building relationships to help with referrals.
So do you remember when you walked away from that luncheon, you're getting in the car to come home? Do you remember how you felt about it? Like, did you know right away that this was a game changer, or were you just kind of processing quietly and not really sure where to go with it?
Yeah, I think I was elated and drained at the same time. Networking for me is as much as I am definitely a serial networker, and I love building relationships, but I really give 110% of myself to share my information with others and help others and try to, I know somebody that can help you. Let me give you their name and contact information. I'll make an introduction. That kind of stuff is very, it can be very draining. So it was like, oh my gosh, I just met the most amazing group of women. This is exactly what I needed as an entrepreneur. And then wow, I'm like a good drained, like I really worked hard. So it's not negative at all, but I was like, oh my God, and that is how I feel after events. It's like going on stage. When I would go on, you're just like, gang, just game on. And then after a performance on stage, you're like, wow, that was draining in a good way because you gave that performance that of a lifetime, or that, you're really proud of yourself for your hard work, so to speak.
Well, I can definitely relate to that.
Yes, I know you can.
Especially in just the last few weeks, I've had 2 musical performances and a keynote just in the last, I will have the other musical performance tomorrow night. Everything there, and really be devoted to your audience. And then when you're done, you're just completely drained. And I think that's relatively common. And at the same time, I think it's really important, if you know that about yourself, to give yourself the space to recover from that before you start letting your hamster brain take over again and figure out how you're going to make meaning out of that performance or that event or that networking experience. Do you find that when you give yourself that time, do you actually process internally afterward, or are you more of an external processor for those kinds of events?
I definitely would say I make sure within 24 hours I connect with those people, tell them, thank you so much for their time. It was wonderful to meet them. Then usually if it's a daytime luncheon or morning meeting, I'll give myself the afternoon to kind of just chill a little bit and, just be with my family and cook or something. Or if it's at nighttime, I'll, just come home and watch something on Netflix and just kind of chill a little bit and sleep well and get up the next morning and do that processing. And I work out a lot too, running or spin or lift weights. That's my head time also, to process information and do a lot of my thinking and strategizing as well.
Yeah, that sounds very familiar. I kind of do that too. I spend a lot of time in my head for the 48 hours or so following an event. I try to find
Mm-hmm.
my space. And you and I share that love for cooking as an
Mm-hmm.
opportunity to take that time. Um, but I find that if I give myself that time and then I tell somebody a story about something that happened, it helps me process. Do you do that sometimes?
No, I think it's hard for me if I don't see any humans or have any interaction for another day or two before another event that like going back to your office, oh my gosh, guys, I just met all these people. But if I don't have that as a solopreneur, I just kind of absorb it and just think about things on my own and process. And it's hard. My family isn't as excited and as enthusiastic about my business as I am.
Uh-huh.
Shocker. But they're quite sick of me talking about it. But,
Oh, I doubt that.
they bear with me for sure. But, and they're very supportive in other ways. But when I come home, I'm just, completely jazzed up and pumped up. Especially if it's, there are those, like you said, those moments and me finding you through a connection that somebody found me on LinkedIn too. I mean, that was pivotal. And like when we were at NLV in Denver and I sat around the room thinking, these people are amazing. Why am I here? I'm not as far along in my business. But you had made the comment about you've also self-selected. And then I've never heard that term before. I've never had that notion or thought process whatsoever. But, I do believe we do meet people at the times that we're supposed to. And you can't be a spectator in life at all. You have to be out there. You have to be vulnerable. You have to put yourself out there in order to move as an entrepreneur your business forward. And it does take a lot of work and energy. But, when you're relaxed and when you're enjoying things, which usually is when things happen for me, I think my true self shines through. And then I end up meeting the most amazing people.
Well, I would definitely agree that that's kind of what happened at NLV. And it's funny that you say that you're sitting in the room and you think all these people are so much further ahead than I am. But you are the second person that I've heard that from in a couple weeks. And the reality is that at least 50 or 60% of the people in that room every year, because this is 3 years now, we're going into the 4th year, we're in the same boat as you, that we were either still working full-time for a company and hadn't even gone solo yet, or we knew what we wanted to do, but we didn't really have clarity around what the services were that we would provide. And it's so funny because when I think of the group that has shown up each year, every year people just contribute and engage. And I think that some people see that as confidence and success when actually it's just people trying to put it out there and figure themselves out. I would say that in the 3 years that we've done NLV, there has never been a single person there that had it all figured out, even if they gave the impression that they did. And yeah, not ever. I mean, otherwise they wouldn't be there.
Yeah, that's a good point.
If they thought they had it all figured out, they wouldn't be going to professional development like this.
Yeah, that's true. That's
particularly this kind, that it's all about connection, and it's all about making sure that you have the foundation, the tribe to support you as you take these next leaps of personal and professional development. So I think it's funny that you said that, but yeah, I mean, I think of myself as kind of the prime example of that. That first year I did NLV, I was completely lost. I mean, professionally, the only thing I knew for sure was that NLV was important.
Yeah.
That was it. I went into it with absolutely no expectations about what anyone would get out of it, other than this is the right thing to do. I don't know why.
So, well, that's a good gut and good intuition.
And they still don't know that, if you realize that. But you're right. You're right. It really is about demonstrating that vulnerability. And what's ironic about this is that I think most of us actually do demonstrate that vulnerability, but even when we're doing it, people hesitate to believe it.
Yeah.
So when I write something about, I was really discouraged yesterday and I was questioning my competence in this environment, blah, blah, blah. People are like, oh yeah, right. Sure.
Yeah. Well, and I would agree with you completely, because when I see you, you're just this, I don't know, just the epitome of professionalism, and you're poised, and I see the confidence and, the diction and the way you handle yourself. And I know having a theater background, there's so many people that I'm meeting and I'm like, oh my gosh, we're all theater geeks from high school and college. Is this why we're all doing what we're doing? But I think that's not what I see.
So you think that people don't believe it when they see that vulnerability exposed? I mean, where would you go with that?
I agree with you, because I think the way we see people is that they're not going to put themselves out there unless they do have a good percentage of competence, like you said, or confidence. I mean, on the flip side, I've seen a lot of amazing entrepreneurs be very raw and honest on videos and really tell their backstories, which are very difficult for them to do. So that's I guess a different side of it. It's a little bit hard to explain. And I, as a PR person, I'm still grappling with how to take that and what would I really give that recommendation to a client. It really depends on their MO, it depends on their why and what kind of business they're in, that what you share and what level of honesty and rawness and authenticity you present to the public or a certain space or, perhaps digital platform.
Yeah, that's a really important point. That's a really important point. That's part of why I wanted to talk to you about this in PR in your own business. When you think about those personal stories that people share, I think people forget that that they're trying to attract a certain clientele. They have a certain audience that they are trying to attract, and sometimes sharing that level of vulnerability or that depth of emotion is not going to attract the kind of client that they have in mind.
Yeah, I agree. And in fact, I don't like to name my clients because I like to honor their confidentiality. But I did have one client, and the organization that she was starting was completely on brand with her presenting her backstory, which was absolutely horrific. And she had risen above to do extremely, extremely well, an absolutely brilliant woman. But for anybody else, I'm not sure I would recommend that. I think you really need to take a deep breath, step back, and really strategize on whether or not what you're going to present to the public is it really a part of your strategy, your brand? Is it going to help your business? Is it going to hinder your business? And are you going to be seen as a professional and a leader after disclosing or sharing this information? And, the pros and cons, and I know different generations present themselves in different ways, and I have to be respectful of that as well. But I still am a very traditional kind of conservative businesswoman in that sense, and how I direct my clients. And really, it's really a case-by-case basis, because I've helped entrepreneurs in completely different spaces. So we have a long conversation about their why, their purpose, and where they're going to go, in the future. And disclosing certain information might not be appropriate. And I, like I said, it's very tailored to that person, and it's a case-by-case basis.
So that's a good story to start with. You said that you had a client that it made sense for her to share that kind of personal depth of emotion.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a story about a client that was sharing this kind of information and you really dissuaded the client from it? Or did they listen to you?
Most clients do. And my joke is just do everything I say and we'll be completely fine. It's a joke, like I want to be in control.
I know everything.
Just do as I say and everything will be fine. But because I'm very cautious, I see a much bigger picture than that person does. They're right in that moment. And I'm seeing 50 steps ahead, and I'm seeing the purpose and the why, and is anybody going to care, or is it going to level your business? There's some things that people will do on their personal time on their social media accounts that I cringe at. And I just, if you've got your shirt off, or if you're, sunbathing, or if you're, it just depends. And everybody is so different. And I don't judge in a critical way. My eye is as a PR professional, and how
it's coming across.
Exactly. I mean,
do you have a specific example of that you had to deal with?
I did not work with the person long enough to give them my lowdown on it, nor did they ask. But, I think if we had continued working together, I would have, presented that information in a very diplomatic, appropriate way. I don't want to hurt feelings. I can be really good at presenting information in a way that will make them take pause and say, you know what? You're right. I won't do it that way again, because I do want, my whole thing in my business is, be you. I want your authentic self. I want your real, unique brilliance to shine. But at the same token, everything that you're doing outside of your own entrepreneurial side, everybody's seeing everything now. If you've got a professional account, if you've got a personal account, it's all blurred. So guess what? You better be on brand everywhere. And that's just my personal opinion.
Well, I completely agree. And you've heard me say that too. And I've definitely posted about it in articles. As a matter of fact, it reminds me of when I was giving a LinkedIn workshop to students at Carroll College here in Helena, Montana, a few weeks ago. And I suggested to them that your digital footprint was a really important aspect, because these are all kids just getting ready to graduate from college. And I said, your digital footprint is really important. If you don't have one, it's going to look questionable. And if you have one that shows questionable things, you're going to have trouble. And so I suggested that they Google their name and maybe some other aspect of themselves. Like for me, I Googled my own name. I put Sarah Elkins, Montana in there. And up came my LinkedIn profile. It was one of the top. My Elkins Consulting page came up right at the top, which is awesome. And my LinkedIn profile came up. And as I was preparing to do this workshop, my husband reminded me that if you have a strong LinkedIn presence, even if it's just active on it a couple times a week, but you have a fully formed profile, then because Microsoft gets the SEO so well, that's likely to be the first thing to come up if somebody searches your name. So right. You can really control in some ways the first few things that come up about you if you were intentional about it. But the issue is that I asked the students in the room, I said, does one of you want to give me your name and I'll Google it? And of course, the first picture that came up of this person was at a big party with beer. Yeah. And this person wasn't even 21 yet. And everybody in the classroom went, uh-oh.
Excellent point.
Yeah, it was. And I said, if you're getting ready to graduate in a year, and I promise you, if you're applying for internships and you are planning to do something with an organization that has a specific reputation, a specific brand, they are going to Google stalk you. They're going to look you up to see what kind of digital footprint you have. And they were all a little bit shocked to see how quickly that showed up.
Absolutely. I'm trying to teach my children the same thing. In fact, I had a colleague at one of my jobs, and a young kid, so amazing, just so mature and just so professional and so good at what he did. And I guess our boss found his social media accounts and said, you need to take this down. This is so not on brand.
Right.
For where we were working, and I'm not going to disclose where. It was ridiculously not on brand, and I was surprised, but he's so young, early 20s, and I'm like, of course that's your lifestyle. I mean, you need to have fun and whatever. But when we were growing up, none of this is out there. None of my social life was out there.
Right.
And But, that's just a good lesson. And even when I'm preparing, I did a consult yesterday, media training tips. One of the things I say is if you don't want the public to know about it, don't say it. So I should add, if you don't want the public to know about it, don't show it. Don't say it, don't show it, because it's going to be out there. And, I think you need to stop and think about everything you do and say, because we're in a complete digital world. Whether or not you're at an event and somebody pulls out their cell phone and starts videotaping you, just I think when you leave your house, you're on stage. And as an entrepreneur or anything else, you just need to be mindful of those, those moments.
Right. And I think one of the most important aspects of this is not that you should be something you're not.
Right, right.
If this is your authentic self, then it's your authentic self.
Right.
At the same time, I think it's character to say, if you are like this in one place, then you're probably like this everywhere else in your life. So just being intentional about it and knowing, I actually just said this in a keynote that I presented yesterday, that if you don't care what people think, and you are who you are and you have no apologies about it, that's great. You just have to be okay with the consequences of that.
Right.
And I think that's what people forget, is that when they don't care what people think and they behave in ways that aren't necessarily a way that a future employer or a future partner would want to experience you, then you have to be okay with that. You have to understand that behavior is going to have consequences.
Right. You need to own it. You just need to own it.
Yeah.
And that is about confidence too. And being an entrepreneur, that you have to be able to, have that armor or that thick skin, so to speak, to handle the naysayers or people that aren't going to agree with you. And I mean, I think that's age too. I mean, I definitely, for me, it's age. I mean, I definitely, thick skin is, I'm not sure I'll ever have it. And I don't know if I want it either. I think an appropriate amount of armor and just being tough and being, with that resolve is important. But I don't, like you said, being authentic, I don't want to lose my true self, and being warm and caring and empathetic. That's a lot of who I am and what I bring forth to my business as well. So,
well, and I think part of what makes you unique, Jennifer, is that you aren't super sensitive about things, because you seem to understand that whatever the person in front of you is saying or doing, it's really not about you.
Right.
And
no.
You bring a sense of compassion with your sensitivity, which means that you aren't as sensitive about what people are saying to you in terms of insulting or something that you may otherwise have taken badly in the past. You've hit a point in your career and as an adult, I guess, that you understand that when somebody says something, it's not necessarily about you.
Right. And that is pretty fresh and new for me. Because I am extremely conscientious. In fact, that was on my grade school report under one of the teacher's comments. And I'm like, how could a second grader or first grader be conscientious? How do you know that? But anyway, that's the story.
Well, but apparently she knew that.
And I care so much, and I care too much that if something was wrong, I took it personally because I care about it. But you're right. At my age now, it's my new saying is not my monkey, not my circus.
Right.
It's, there's only so much in this short life we're given that we can control, that if I do the best I can with integrity and values every day, the rest I leave up to whatever else there is. I'm finally comfortable in saying that, and it's taken a lot of hard work to get to that place. But that's my year. This has been my year for learning boundaries, stepping into my true self, and, letting go of perfectionism, which I never realized it's a weakness, but honestly, it's something you hide behind because you're not ready to step into the reality of who you should really want to be and try to be. I think perfectionism can be an excuse, because I've been there. I wanted perfect press kits and a perfect house, and everything perfect because that was my calm. And that meant I was in control of everything. But that is so unrealistic. And learning to let go and take a deep breath and take things as they come is just, it's very freeing. And I think, it's not that I'm not going to give 110% to all of my work, but I'm not going to freeze up and not move forward anymore, because I do have that confidence, that deep breath. I can take it. I can handle it. And it's going to be okay. But that
Let's go back to that whole perfectionist thing, because you went with it in a totally different direction than I was expecting.
Oh, I want to hear your perspective.
Yeah,
first.
and I really like it. I really like it. No, I really like it, because first of all, when you said perfectionism can be an excuse, and then you said that it was an excuse to have control over things. That is what I heard you say. When I heard you originally say perfectionism as an excuse, I thought you were going to say perfectionism as an excuse not to step out of your comfort zone and not to put yourself out there. Because,
exactly.
Yeah. So it's both sides of that coin.
Yeah.
It's both.
Yeah, it is.
Because
I agree. You're right.
So many people will choose not to put themselves out there because the article they were trying to write isn't perfect, or the book they were writing isn't perfect. And so they give themselves an excuse to say, I'm not going to release this until it's perfect. And then it ends up never being released because it's never perfect.
Right,
and it is an excuse to say, I'm not going to put it out there.
And it's hard. I mean, I did that with videos. I even posted an article about that, at some point, you're not giving everybody else the opportunity to judge it. But at the same token, if you put something out there, it is going to be judged. And my videos are far from perfect. And I'm nervous. I'm not as nervous as I was before. But I decided to kind of own it and step into my truth, because if I'm going to be an entrepreneur and I'm going to tell my clients, oh my God, live TV, it's so easy, like I'll totally prep you. But I had done that up until a year ago. But now I've decided, wait a minute, I need to do everything that I'm telling my clients they should do, because I need to do marketing and PR for myself. So I've done videos, I've done interviews, I've sent in articles, I've been quoted in different media outlets, and I've done podcasts, and I'm like, you know what? Now I feel better because I've done that all. And
because you've walked the walk, and you can tell them what it was like for you.
Exactly. And not a lot of, I think more
I love
PR
that. I think about that a lot. Yeah, more PR people could do that for sure.
Yeah. I just think it makes me more of value. I'm serving my clients better by being authentic and real, and that they know they can trust me because I've done it, and I felt the nerves, and I've been on stage and felt nervous. And I think nervous, it can be good. I think it makes you focus. I think it means you care and you take a deep breath. And also for me, that type of anxiety, it just, it puts me up to a higher level of awareness, and so that I can present myself the best that I want to be.
Right. And the other thing about it is that you're modeling the behavior you want to see in your clients. And you're modeling the truth that you bring value with your expertise. So it's kind of like when I tell people I have a coach myself, because I think you can't necessarily be a good coach if you don't believe in it enough to have a coach yourself.
Right. And we don't have it all figured out. And I don't have an MBA. And I'm good at PR, but I'm learning how to be a better entrepreneur every day. And it is successes and it is failures. And I will admit that openly, that I'm far from perfect. And I think that's what makes me get up every day, is I want to do better. I want to learn. I want to move forward. I have crappy days. I've had an awesome week this week, but it takes It takes so much hard work to have a good day. I had a friend say, oh my gosh, you're doing so much. You're networking. You're getting yourself out there. You're doing so great. I'm like, well, it's taken me 2 to 3 years to get to this point, and it is a lot of hard work. And I am very grateful that I'm now being invited into leadership discussions and leadership events and women's groups, but it's because I put myself out there and I pressed, submit, or I pressed play, or, it's a lot of anxiety on my end in the pit of my stomach. If they don't like this video, or they don't like this article, or what is this podcast, I had to just deal with it and really present myself as authentically and as real, to now bring in those human interactions, digital interactions that are now taking place. But, success comes in all shapes and sizes and varieties, and we all have different definitions.
Mm-hmm. I think about how there really isn't such a thing as an overnight success. I mean, it takes a lot of hard work to get to that point of being an overnight success.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there is a quote about that. An overnight success takes 10 years or something.
Right, exactly.
Because it is true. It is true. And,
even if it's not within the work that you're doing currently, it has to be the things that you've applied, that you've learned over the previous 10, 20, 30 years. It's not necessarily that it took you 10 years to get to this point in your current iteration, but you had to experience all those years to get to where you are in this current iteration. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. In fact, I was having a conversation about, charging clients, and, I was doubting myself because, I've only been an entrepreneur for a couple of years, but heck, I started doing PR in 1991. I'm not going to lie to you. And I've worked the Columbine crisis and 9/11, and I've had lots of different jobs and lots of internships. And, all of my experiences and my work experiences and my mentors and all the amazing, colleagues I've worked with, all my experiences are just rolled into that experience that I then pass out down to, my client. In fact, I had an amazing 1-hour session with somebody to help them with messaging, that she had done a video or TV interview and she wasn't happy with it. So we walked through how it happened and why it happened and what were the questions and what were her answers. And she was blown away and said, wow, I didn't look at it that way. And then she texted me later in the afternoon. She said, hey, lady, she said, I am so grateful for meeting with you, because I just had an experience with a client that if I didn't have the knowledge that you gave me in that morning meeting, I wouldn't have been able to make an educated decision in that meeting, when she had that afternoon. So, that makes me feel so good that I can take all of my stories or experiences and pass them on to other people in these anecdotal nuggets, I guess you could say.
Right. Well, that's the value you bring to the table. It's not your 2 years of entrepreneurship.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I'm like, you're right. I know
decades.
Right. I know my stuff. And I'm not going to be boastful about it, but I've worked very hard to gain the experience that I have. And there were lots of 12-hour days and weekends and lots of Friday nights waiting for a news truck to come on a Friday when I would have liked to be out with friends or my boyfriend or something at the time. But, I love my experiences, and I love my supervisors and bosses and colleagues. It's the good, the bad, the ugly. You just, you learn from everything, and I don't ever want to stop learning.
Well, great way to wrap up conversation. I don't want to stop learning either. And we could go on for a long time about this, but before we stop the recording, I would like to let our listeners know that there will be links to Jennifer's LinkedIn profile so that you can connect with her on LinkedIn, and a link to her website, and some basic information about Jennifer so that you can learn more about her. Jennifer, if you could reach a potential client today through this podcast, what would you want them to know about you and your business?
I give every client my best self to help move their business forward. And I'm an outside of the box thinker, that my mind really doesn't stop 24/7, because I love what I do. I truly love what I do.
Oh, I love that. That's perfect. So Jennifer does PR, and she is a whiz at that. I'm so glad we had an opportunity to chat finally, because we've been talking about doing this for about a year now.
Oh.
And I'm really looking forward to seeing you in March on the 12th and 13th in Chicago for No Longer Virtual Chicago 2020. And for our listeners, the No Longer Virtual information is on my website, elkinsconsulting.com. And Jennifer has generously agreed to run one of our speed sessions on the second day of the conference. And she'll be doing Q&A on your most important PR questions. So I'm so excited to have you there.
I'm thrilled and so excited to do it with your amazing group that comes. I'm really looking forward to it. And I appreciate your time today and this amazing opportunity. And I love knowing you, Sarah.
Oh, I love knowing you too, Jennifer. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Your Stories Don't Define You, How You Share Them Will. Please visit my website for more podcast episodes, blog posts, and information about how I can help you develop and share your stories at elkinsconsulting.com.
Now listen to me, honey, while I say, how could you tell me that you're going